So we're going to be talking about prompts. Okay. Prompts, we've already had one so far. And a prompt is just something that asks you to write about some topic, whatever topic the prompt asks you. Okay. Now, I can tell you all that for the most part, really, you guys end up being pretty good writers. And even if you think, oh, I'm not a very good writer right now, we're going to practice a lot in fourth grade. So you're going to get plenty of practice. And like I told you, honestly, a lot of you become very, very good writers. But there is one problem that no matter how good of a writer you are, if you make this mistake, you're not going to get very good grades on your writing. Okay? The biggest mistake that people make is that they don't write to address the prompt. They don't actually answer whatever the prompt is asking them. So I'll give you an example. If mom or dad or me were to ask you, hey, what's your favorite color? Now, a lot of you probably already had the answer pop into your heads. If you answered something like blue or orange or green or yellow, those are absolutely fine answers. And everyone's going to have an answer that's a little bit different. That's kind of the way we want the prompts to go. The problem is that not everyone knows how to really look at a prompt or read a prompt, figure out what are they asking me. So sometimes people will write a response to the prompt, and instead of answering the question, they answer a completely different question. So in that example, if I asked you, what's your favorite color? And then your answer was Wednesday. Okay, well, you might have answered my question, but that didn't have anything to do with what I was asking. It's almost like you didn't answer my question at all. Violet, right now, we're not going on anywhere. We're just focusing on my screen right now so I can show you guys something about the prompt. So that's people's problem. Is the prompt is asking one thing and they're answering a completely separate question. Now, Wednesday could have answered a lot of questions. It could have been, what's your favorite day? It could have been, when do you want to go get pizza? It could be, when was the last time you watched a movie? It could have answered a different question. And if I had asked that question, it would have been a great answer. But if my question was, what is your favorite color? Tell me Wednesday, not a very good answer. Same thing's true in writing. If the prompt asks us for one thing and you give a completely separate answer, even if your writing is beautiful and it doesn't have any mistakes, it's completely perfect, and you have lots of description and you use similes and metaphors and punctuation is perfect, everything is wonderful, fantastic, and you write me 1,000 pages, but you don't answer the question, not going to get a very good grade. Not because your writing is terrible and awful, but because you didn't answer what I asked you. So today I'm going to talk to you all and I'm going to show you how you can kind of break down a prompt and see what are they really asking you. Okay? So a prompt, you can kind of break it up into three parts. I'll show you the three parts right now. So the first part of a prompt is something that we call a go. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and shape here to help me out. Shapes. Okay, so for a go, I'm going to use a triangle. Okay, I want to be able to see through it. Go ahead and make it green. Okay, that's the first part of the prompt that we're going to talk about. Let's also make it green, big. Oh, we can make it bigger. Bigger than Okay, good. Okay. So the first part of our prompt that we're going to talk about, we're going to call it go. Okay? Go is like the instruction word. The way I kind of think of it is like when people are going to race each other, usually there's someone that says ready, set, go. And when they say go, that's when the two people take off for the race. Go is kind of like that in a prompt. Go is the part that tells you what you're going to do. Okay? There are a couple of words that they might use for the go. I'm going to write them here, and then I'm going to tell you, because there's one that you're going to see probably more than any other one in 4th grade. That's the one they're going to use for. Again, a little bit bigger. Okay. And so some of the words they might use are plain. They might use express, write, inform, tell, describe. Oop, got my comma. Tell, describe. They might use research, share, or they might use create. These are all words that they might use in a prompt that is the go. But the one word that I see more than any other on prompts in 4th grade, this one. Word write. Our prompts in 4th grade will usually start with them saying, write about blank. The prompt will go a little bit further. But that's like that's the signal to start. Write. So wherever they say write is usually where your prompt is. Okay, so that's the first part. You might be thinking, well, duh, it's a prompt. Yes, write makes sense. They tell me to write, I should write. Yes, I am. But that's not the only part we're going to talk about. Two other parts in a prompt that are really important for us to be able to find, be able to figure out, so that we can make sure that our prompt, our writing, is actually addressing the prompt, is actually answering the prompt. That way we can get the best grade possible. Okay? This next one, I'll go with the circle for this. Award. Again, and let's make this one, make it red. Okay. So this next one, I'm using the circle for. This one is what we call a topic. Big. Topic. Now, topic is just as important as the go. The topic is, what are you going to write about? Okay. Sometimes for a topic, I think like the top of your head, you should always be thinking about that topic. Whatever they ask you to write about, you should always be thinking about it as you're writing. Sometimes what people will do is they'll start talking about the topic and then they'll kind of get distracted and they'll start talking about other things that the topic reminded them. You want to try your best to not get distracted. You need to make sure that your writing stays on topic. So I'll give you an example. And this is a real life example. So even when you go to middle school, you go to high school, they have STAR test, right? End of every year you have the STAR. So one of the years when I was in high school, there was a prompt that asked us to write about friendship. Okay? Friendship. And one of the people that I knew, we were talking a week later, a week after we took the test. And we were talking about it, and I told him, "Oh, well, I don't know if I explained about friendship that well. I don't know if I wrote very well on the test." And he tells me, "Uh, I didn't write about friendship." I said, "What? What do you mean?" The prompt told us to write about friendship. He said, "Oh, it's cuz I started talking about my friends, and then I talked about how how he would watch movies like about ninjas with them, and then his whole paper was about talking about ninja movies, and that's all he wrote about." So when he got his scores back for the test, he did not do very well. Because again, even if he did a great job, if he explained those ninja movies super super well, and whoever was reading his paper went, "Okay, wow, that's really interesting. I understand it." That's not what I asked you though. So no matter how good the writing is, if it doesn't talk about the topic, it's not going to get you a very good score. You need to make sure that you stay on topic and that you don't spend too much time going and talking about things that maybe it reminds you of, but that's not what the topic is asking you. Okay? Now, some of the things that you can talk about, so long as they're related to the topic, some of the things that you can use to get ideas so that you can write more is and think about things bigger and think about family. Oh, sorry. You can think about family. You could think about friends, about surroundings, so what's around you, memories that you have, technology, if it applies to if it applies to the topic, you can talk about technology like your phones, computers, things like that. Travel's a good one. Travel's a very very good one to talk about if again if it matches with the topic. If it doesn't match with the topic, don't just start talking about it. Travel, food is a very good one. People are usually much better at describing food, and if you describe food very well, it makes your reader very interested. Everyone likes food. Different events, and we can put reflections. So reflections are just where you write about your thoughts about that topic. Okay? But again, all of this, whatever you write about, has to match with the topic. If the topic is something like your favorite place to go, and you tell me that your favorite place to go is, let's say, the park. Park is my favorite place to go. You could talk about going to the park with your family or going to the park with your friends. You could talk about all the things you see at the park or memories that you had at the park. You can talk about different events. Maybe if there was like a birthday or something you went to the park for. You can talk about if there was a cookout that you went there for. Talk about food. But if you start talking about, let's say, your family, you want to make sure that you're still focused on the park. So you don't want to tell me something like, I go to the park with my cousin, and my cousin lives in San Antonio, and then in San Antonio there's a river, and they have all these like really cool shops around the river in San Antonio. Like there's this one shop that sells hats, and the hats are like these really big, goofy, funny hats. And every time we go, I ask my mom, "Can I please buy a hat?" And then she tells me, "No, you can't buy a hat because they're too expensive, and you're never gonna wear it." And I tell her, "Mom, I will wear it every single day. I promise. You just gotta buy me one of these silly hats." Did anything about the river or the hats or the stores have to do with the park? None of it had to do with the park. So you need to make sure that if you're going to talk about things like that, you're going to talk about your family, about your friends, about food, memories, they need to still be talking about your topic. They need to be related. And just be something that you remembered in the middle of your writing and then you decided to put it in there. Yes, Kylie.
I need to leave
That's
right
okay.
now for my appointment.
That's all right. Go ahead and go, and we'll see you afterward. But we need to make sure that we stay focused. Like I said, that whole tangent where I start talking about the shop in San Antonio that sells the hats, that didn't help me with the park. I could talk about my cousin, the one from San Antonio, and how every time my cousin comes and visits, that we like to go to the park because in the park maybe there's like a big playground that we like to play on, or there's some swings that we always play on, monkey bars or something like that. I could talk about how I like going to the park because there's always one ice cream truck that always shows up and they make the best cones. So I go to the park, I get a snow cone, I sit down on the bench, and then I just hang out for a while. I can talk about how the last time I went to the park, I went with my dog and then we threw a frisbee. The dog caught the frisbee in its mouth and then it ran to me, and then before I could get the frisbee back, it ran away from me and I had to chase it and get the frisbee back. All of those things are still things that I did at the park. It's still talking about the park. So they make sense to put into my writing. But I don't want to start talking about San Antonio. I don't want to start talking about different stores that they have in San Antonio. And I don't want to start talking about rivers and things that aren't in the park. I want to keep my story at the park or whatever it is I'm writing about. We've talked about two parts so far, the go. Oh, let's make this little match. Okay. Last part we're going to talk about for our prompts. This time, what shape can I use? A triangle, we use a circle, use a rectangle. Parent in this one, to blue. Okay. This next part that we're going to talk about. Okay. The next part that we're going to talk about is called a charge. Okay. So this last part of the prompt is what we call the charge. Okay. So the charge is the best way I could think about it is raise your hand if you've ever seen those movies where they have sometimes they'll have like armies fighting a battle, and especially if it's an older movie, you might hear someone playing like a trumpet or a bugle and then they'll go charge, and that's when the armies start like running at each other. So who's ever seen that like in a movie or in a cartoon or something like that? Okay, some of us. The charge is where they actually tell you what they want you to do. Okay, the charge is very, very important. This is usually the part that people will get wrong and they'll write about something completely different. Some of the words they might use in charge, ones that tell you what they want you to write about. The words they might use here are things like why or effects of, or they might tell you to pick a side. They might ask you what is the importance of something, or what are solutions for something. Ooh, another one they like to do is instead of saying importance of, they'll try to use a fancier word and see if they can trick people. So they'll say significance of, or they might say how. How does this something? Now, again, in fourth grade, there's one that you're usually going to see more than the other ones. The one that you're usually going to see more than the others in fourth grade is why. There is another one that they like to use sometimes. I like to use this in fourth grade as well. The importance of. Yes, Heidi.
What about problem?
So if they ask you about solutions, they're kind of telling you there is a problem. So if they tell you, let's say, what is a solution to getting up early to go to school? They're already telling you that there might be a problem getting up early, and they're asking you to kind of solve the problem for them.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good question. So they won't usually ask you what's the problem because that can be answered in one sentence by itself. You can just put the problem is it's early. Duh. I want to wake up. But if they ask you for solutions, then you have to actually write more than a sentence. Because you have to tell them, well, it's early. I don't want to wake up. So maybe I could go to bed earlier, or maybe I could get some things ready at night. That way in the morning I have less to do so I can sleep a little bit more. Or maybe I just need to set more than one alarm because sometimes I set my alarm and then I wake up with the alarm and I turn it off and then I go right back to bed. Or something like that. So they won't ask you for a problem because, again, usually you can just answer the problem in one sentence and that's it. And in a prompt, they want you to write. They want you to write more than one sentence. They want you to explain to them and to write for them. They won't usually ask you for a problem, but they'll ask you for a solution. Okay? Like I said, they might use any of these, but the ones that we'll see more than the others in fourth grade are why, the importance of. So they might ask you something like, let's use the example earlier about what's your favorite place? Your favorite place to go visit? They might say, write about, so they'll use a go. Write about, give you a topic, your favorite place, so surrounding, to go and visit, and why. Because again, if they just had to go in the topic, you could answer that like in one sentence. Write about your favorite place to visit. My favorite place is the park. That's it. I answered the question. But that's why they add the charge, so that you have something to write more about. So if they say why, explain why. They don't just want you to say, oh, my favorite place is the park. They want you to tell them, my favorite place is the park because I go there with my cousin when they visit from out of town. Because they have that really good ice cream truck. The one that sells the best snow cones ever. Or the one that always has those hot Cheetos that I really like and they have the cheese to put on them. Oh. Or if you say, well, I like that park because it has the splash pad. So I can go there and I can like play with all the water and stuff and then we can go home. Or I like it because it's really close to my house and there's lots of room for my dog to run around. They don't just want you to give them one sentence, be done with writing. They want you to have a chance to explain to them, this is my favorite because I like this part of it. Because I like this part. I like to be able to go with my dog, or I like to be able to get the snow cones or the hot Cheetos with the cheese, or I like to go get wet at the splash pad. They want you to explain, they want you to write more. So they're going to include the charge at the end so so that way you know what to focus on. Why do you like it, or why is it important to you? It's important because my dog goes there. My dog loves that place. He always wants to go. Or it's important because I don't know where else that ice cream truck goes. So if I don't go to the park, I don't know where the ice cream truck is going to show up, and then I don't get snow cones and hot Cheetos. Or it's important because if we didn't have the park, me and my cousin couldn't go anywhere. He would come visit and we'd be in my house all day and we wouldn't have a lot to do. This is what helps us write more, make those longer pieces of writing and those better pieces of writing. So these three parts of the topic, you need to make sure that you pay attention to them. And we're going to be practicing throughout the week. I'm going to show you some examples of some prompts, and we're going to practice finding the go, finding the topic, finding the charge. But I wanted to just take today and talk to you about those three parts, so that way we can start trying to figure out or start trying to find the different parts, practice topics or practice prompts.